Chapter 1. The Descent Begins. Have you ever noticed how quiet the world becomes when the last light fades? There's a peculiar stillness that settles over the body, a silence that feels less like absence and more like invitation. The mind begins to loosen its grip, the breath softens, and what you thought was peace reveals itself as the threshold between what you know and what you've refused to know. This is where we begin tonight, not with effort, not with striving, but with surrender, the gentle surrender that precedes all real understanding. You've come to rest, but beneath that rest stirs something old. You can feel it if you listen, that quiet pulse beneath your ribs, steady and ancient, the part of you that has never been tamed by daylight reason. Jung called this the shadow, the unlived life, the unspoken truth, the self you turned away from to survive. Tonight, we're not here to banish it. We're here to descend toward it, slowly, respectfully, like entering a sacred forest at dusk. Let the breath lengthen. Each exhale is a small surrender, each inhale a remembering. As the body grows heavier, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast cave. Behind you lies the surface world, your routines, your titles, your conversations that skim the water's edge of meaning. Before you yawns the unknown. The air is cool, the darkness thick with the scent of soil and stone. You're not being asked to be brave, only honest. The descent is not about conquering fear, but learning to sit beside it. Take a step, then another. The sound of your footsteps fades into the earth. As you move deeper, memories begin to whisper, not in words, but in feelings that rise unbidden. The times you turned away from your own anger, the moments you smiled to keep peace when your truth was burning in your chest. The times you loved too little or too much because you didn't know what enough looked like. These are not accusations. They are invitations. The shadow never condemns. It only reveals what you have hidden in order to survive. There's a pool of light flickering ahead. A small lantern rests upon a stone table, its flame unsteady. You approach it and notice how the light moves. It doesn't push back the darkness, it lives within it. The shadow and the flame belong to the same dance. You realize then that the descent is not a punishment. It is the oldest form of healing. Sit beside the lantern. Let its glow move across your face. You are no longer running from your life. You are turning toward it. This is the first step, to stop pretending that the darkness is foreign. You were born from it. You remember dreams you once dismissed, the recurring hallway, the faceless figure, the endless stare. In Jung's language, these are not random images but messages from the unconscious, written in the only alphabet it knows. Symbol, sensation, rhythm. The descent is the translation of that language into awareness. When you descend, you are not losing yourself. You are retrieving what was lost. As the quiet deepens, notice how the cave around you begins to shift. The walls breathe slightly. The darkness feels alive, listening. The shadow is not a monster waiting to harm you. It is the part of you that has waited decades to be heard. It's the rage you turned into discipline, the tenderness you disguised as detachment, the grief you stored in your bones until it became fatigue. The descent asks nothing but attention. So listen. You hear the dripping of water, the slow echo of your own breath. You feel the pulse of the earth through your palms. The deeper you go, the less there is to hold on to, and yet, paradoxically, you begin to feel more held than ever before. This is the paradox Jung spoke of often, the moment when surrender becomes strength. You are not trying to master the darkness. You are remembering that it was never separate from you. A memory rises now, not chosen, not controlled. Perhaps you are 5 years old, hiding under a table while voices argue in the next room. Or maybe you're 12, standing on a soccer field, pretending not to care that your father isn't there to watch. Or perhaps it's last week, a small humiliation that reopened an ancient wound. The scene doesn't matter. What matters is the sensation, that quiet ache of being unseen, of needing to make yourself smaller to stay safe. That, too, is shadow. It is not your fault. It is your inheritance. Stay with it. Don't rush toward meaning. You see, healing isn't an intellectual act. It's a remembering of belonging. When you stop fighting what hurts, when you allow the wound to exist without shame, the psyche begins to breathe again. Pain, when met with presence, becomes passage. Tonight, that's what we are doing, letting pain become passage. The lantern flickers again, dimming slightly, and you realize something important. The light was never outside you. It simply needed darkness to be visible. Without shadow, there is no contrast. Without descent, there is no return. You close your eyes. Inside, another kind of seeing begins. Shapes appear, slow, fluid, unthreatening. You sense a presence behind you, the archetypal guide Jung might have called the wise old man. Not separate from you, but an older intelligence within you. His voice is quiet, more felt than heard. He says, "You came here to meet what you avoided. You will find it not as an enemy, but as a mirror. Do not rush. The deeper self cannot be forced. It must be courted with silence." His words dissolve into the air. You are alone again, but not lonely. There's a calm now, the kind that comes only after truth is allowed to exist. The body is heavier, but the spirit feels lighter. This is how descent begins. Not in drama, but in the slow release of pretending. The shadow is not your downfall, it is your foundation. Let that truth settle into your breathing. With every exhale, imagine you are descending one step further into yourself. A staircase spiraling down through the heart, through memory, through the stories you told to survive. There's nothing to fix here, only to understand. You feel your mind begin to quiet, thoughts stretching out like smoke until they dissolve. You begin to sense something vast behind all your striving. The self, what Jung described as the organizing intelligence of the psyche. It does not shout, it waits, and the moment you stop running, it steps forward. Not to judge, but to welcome you home. The descent is not over. It has only just begun. But you have crossed the first threshold, the willingness to turn inward. Let the lantern dim completely now. The darkness around you is no longer frightening. It feels like an embrace. You lie down on the earth, its coolness seeping into your back. The sound of your breathing merges with the pulse of the ground. You realize you are not descending alone. The whole of humanity has made this journey before you. Every man who ever dared to grow whole has had to kneel before his own shadow. The air grows warm. Somewhere deeper in the cave, a river flows, steady, eternal. You don't need to move toward it. It will come to you in time. For now, rest. The descent will continue when you are ready. Chapter 2. The Gate of Forgetting. There comes a point in every descent when the ordinary sense of time begins to dissolve. You no longer know how long you've been here, nor how far you've gone. There is only breathing and the sound of your heart beating in the dark. Somewhere above, the surface world still turns. Lights flickering in windows, conversations unfolding, lives rushing forward. But it all feels impossibly distant now, like a dream you've already begun to forget. This is the threshold Jung called the Gate of Forgetting. The necessary loss of orientation before a new kind of knowing can emerge. You can feel it, that gentle unraveling of the stories that once defined you. The titles, the ambitions, the plans, the ideas of who you're supposed to be, who others needed you to be, who you tried to become to earn love or respect. They begin to fade, not as a punishment, but as a mercy. For the psyche can only grow into its fullness once it has released the mask it mistook for its face. The gate stands ahead. You can't see it clearly. It's more a shift in atmosphere than a physical door. The air thickens. The sound of your breath slows. Everything you think you know about yourself hovers at the edge of awareness, waiting to be surrendered. You take another slow breath. The old stories begin to fall away. You remember the times you said yes when you meant no, and no when you were afraid of being abandoned. You remember how often you performed strength to avoid feeling weak. You remember how many times you've mistaken control for peace. These recollections drift by like leaves in a current. You don't chase them, you let them go. The gate of forgetting is not about erasing your past. It's about releasing your identification with it. Jung said that what we repress doesn't disappear, it waits. The more tightly we cling to our surface self, the more fiercely the unconscious demands to be heard. Forgetting, in this sense, is not loss. It's spaciousness. It's the making of room for what is deeper, truer, older than identity. You approach the gate, and it shimmers faintly, as though woven from memory itself. The closer you come, the more it seems to dissolve. This is how the unconscious works. It resists being grasped. It yields only to patience. So you pause before it. You place a hand upon its surface, warm, pulsing, alive. And you realize the gate is made of everything you've avoided feeling. Shame, guilt, nostalgia, desire, grief, all of it. You don't force it open. You simply breathe against it, and slowly it yields. A subtle wind moves through you, not around you, through you. You feel as if your body itself is exhaling decades of tension. You feel the loosened weight of old roles. Son, worker, achiever, pleaser. One by one they drift away, leaving behind a kind of nakedness. This is the first great forgetting. To no longer be imprisoned by what once kept you safe. Jung believed that every transformation begins with disorientation. The ego must lose its footing to discover that it was never the center of the universe. It resists this at first. You'll feel it now. The faint flutter of doubt, the mind's attempt to return to structure. It whispers, what if I lose myself entirely? But there is no danger here. What you lose is only what was borrowed. What remains is what was always yours. Breathe again. The air on the other side of the gate feels different. Warmer, thicker, almost liquid. You step through. Now the cave opens into a vast chamber, lit by no visible source, yet glowing with a dim golden hue, as though the walls themselves remember sunlight. The space feels impossibly large, echoing with silence. In the center stands a figure, faint, translucent, neither young nor old, male nor female. It watches you with calm familiarity. You realize, with a small ache, that this is the self you once were before the world taught you to forget. The figure doesn't speak, yet somehow you understand. This is not a meeting of strangers. It is a reunion. You remember flashes, childhood curiosity, unguarded laughter, the capacity to be astonished by simple things. These qualities didn't die. They sank beneath the noise of survival. The gate of forgetting doesn't erase them. It allows you to remember them without the distortion of shame. The figure gestures gently, and the chamber ripples as if alive. Around you appear scenes from your life, moments you'd long buried. The argument that ended a friendship, the night you sat awake, replaying words you couldn't take back, the time you betrayed your own boundaries just to keep someone close. Each scene unfolds like a slow film projected on the walls. But this time, you don't rush to interpret, justify, or condemn. You simply witness. This is the second forgetting. To forget the habit of judgment. You begin to see patterns, not mistakes, but echoes of the same longing. Each time you broke your own heart, it was for the same reason. You wanted to be seen, to be loved without condition. That desire, too, is sacred. It has just been misplaced. The gate of forgetting teaches you that even your worst decisions were, at their core, misguided attempts to return to wholeness. A wave of tenderness moves through you, not sentimentality, but compassion born from truth. You realize you've been harder on yourself than any other could be. You've mistaken cruelty for discipline, self-criticism for honesty. But true awareness isn't harsh. It's merciful. The figure places a hand over its heart, and you do the same. For a moment, you feel your own heartbeat sync with something larger, the collective pulse of all who have descended before you. Kings, wanderers, fathers, sons, each had to pass through this forgetting. Each had to lay down what they thought they knew in order to touch what cannot be taught. The figure begins to fade. You don't feel loss, only gratitude. You understand now. You cannot carry memory and revelation at the same time. One must be loosened for the other to take root. So you walk on. The chamber narrows again, the golden light dimming. You can still feel the warmth of the figure's presence, but it moves now inside you, not beside you. You come upon a small archway carved into stone. Etched above it are words you somehow recognize, though you've never seen them. To remember the self, you must first forget the mask. You step through. On the other side, the air is cool again. The sound of water returns, faint, rhythmic, eternal. You realize that forgetting isn't emptiness. It's clearing. It's the slow unclenching of the psyche's fist. You walk beside the invisible stream, your steps soundless, your breathing steady. Thought no longer dominates. It flows like the current, continuous, effortless. The deeper you go, the more you sense a balance emerging. The ego still present, but softened, less defensive, more permeable. You remember Jung's words. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You understand them now, not as philosophy, but as lived experience. Fate isn't punishment, it's repetition, the psyche's attempt to resolve what you refuse to face. The gate of forgetting interrupts that repetition. It offers you a pause long enough to see that you were never cursed, only unexamined. As you continue walking, a faint glow appears ahead, the beginning of a new chamber. You feel lighter now. Your body moves differently, slower but surer, as though gravity itself has softened. Before you step forward, you turn back one last time. The gate has vanished. There is no door, no marker of passage, only darkness behind you, warm, still, and infinite. You realize you couldn't return to who you were even if you tried. The forgetting has already done its work. You whisper a quiet thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to the silence itself. Then you move on. The sound of water deepens, echoing softly like the slow rhythm of breath before sleep. Ahead lies the next chamber, the mirror of fear. And with that, Chapter 2 closes, as the descent continues. Chapter 3. The Mirror of Fear. Fear is the first true guardian of the unconscious. It meets every man who dares to walk deeper than the surface of his mind. It does not come to destroy you. It comes to test your willingness to stay. In the daylight world, fear is something to conquer, to overcome, to silence. But down here, beneath the noise of thought, fear is something entirely different. It is intelligence, the psyche's ancient signal that you are approaching something that matters. The air in the cave cools as you continue walking. The path narrows until it becomes a corridor of stone. The sound of water echoes behind you now, replaced by a hollow hum that seems to come from within your own chest. Each breath sends the faintest vibration through the walls. It feels as if the cave itself is breathing with you, in and out, slow and steady. You reach a curve in the path and step into a vast chamber, darker than the others. The floor is glassy and still, reflecting your faint silhouette in the lantern's dim glow. At first, you think it's water, but as you kneel, you see that it's not. It's mirror-like stone, black, smooth and alive with reflections. Jung would call this place the mirror of the shadow, the moment when what you most fear to see begins to look back. You take a slow breath, and the reflection sharpens. It's you, but not quite. The man staring back at you is heavier somehow. His shoulders carry something yours do not. His eyes burn with something you've tried not to feel. His jaw is tense, his face both older and more alive. You recognize him instantly. This is the man who holds all the emotions you've refused to own: rage, envy, grief, lust, tenderness, disappointment. The mirror doesn't judge. It simply reveals. You stand before it, and for a moment you want to turn away. The instinct to escape is strong, but down here, resistance is the only danger. You steady your breath and stay. The reflection begins to move, independent of you, as if alive. He steps closer. You notice details, the scars, the tightness in the mouth, the sadness in the eyes that feels deeper than memory. You hear a voice. Your voice, but older, slower. Every time you ran from me, I waited. Every time you shamed your anger, silenced your pain, laughed when you wanted to weep, I waited. You built a life on what you could show. I carried what you could not. You close your eyes, but his presence doesn't fade. He's inside you now, not a reflection, but a resonance. You realize that fear was never about what the world could do to you. It was about what might happen if this part of you came to light. Fear of your own magnitude. Fear of your own depth. You remember Jung's words. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is the meaning of the mirror. You cannot love what you will not face. The reflection reaches out a hand. You hesitate, then mirror the gesture. The surface between you ripples like liquid, and the sensation of warmth passes into your skin. Not pleasant, but real. You feel emotion rising, not sharp or loud, but tidal. You've held this back for years, maybe decades. All the apologies unsaid, all the love unexpressed, all the anger denied. It's heavier than you thought, but it doesn't crush you. It steadies you. You open your eyes. The reflection is closer now. It's breathing with you. The two of you, surface and shadow, fall into the same rhythm. You begin to understand something crucial. Fear isn't an enemy to eliminate. It's a threshold to cross. Every great transformation demands it. Jung described fear as the natural consequence of moving from the known to the unknown, from ego to self. The psyche fears dissolution, yet only through that dissolution can it be reborn. You whisper to the reflection, "I'm here." It doesn't reply, but its form begins to change. The features soften. The anger in its eyes gives way to sadness, and then to something else. Relief. You realize that this part of you was never trying to hurt you. It was trying to protect you from the overwhelm of being human. The mirror was not punishment. It was mercy. A sound echoes through the chamber. Faint at first, then growing. It's a heartbeat, but not only yours. It's the rhythm of the unconscious itself. You feel it in your hands, your chest, your breath. The entire room seems to pulse with life. The mirror's surface trembles, then liquefies completely. You step forward and walk into it. The sensation is immediate. Warmth, vibration, silence. You're surrounded by light and darkness intertwined, neither dominating the other. You feel weightless, suspended in a kind of dream. Images drift by. A childhood bedroom, a first kiss, the face of someone you loved and lost. These are fragments of the self, floating freely now that fear has loosened its grip. This is what Jung meant when he said that fear guards the treasure. The treasure is not gold or knowledge. It's integration, the ability to hold the full range of your humanity without collapsing. The man who can do that becomes unbreakable, not because he is hard, but because he is whole. You drift for what feels like hours, though time means little here. Gradually, the light fades, leaving only a faint glow around you. You realize you're breathing again, slow, steady, at peace. You have crossed the mirror, and what was once an adversary is now an ally. When you open your eyes, you're standing in another passageway. The air feels lighter. The oppressive silence of fear has been replaced by something gentler, a quiet humility. You understand now that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to remain present in its company. Behind you, the mirror has vanished. It doesn't shatter, it simply ceases to exist. Once a truth is faced, it no longer needs to haunt you. You walk on. The corridor leads downward, and soon you hear the faint rush of water again. The sound is softer than before, like a lullaby played through stone. You follow it, feeling the earth's pulse beneath your feet. The air grows warmer, scented with minerals and something faintly sweet. Ahead, a soft light glows, the entrance to another chamber. You can feel that the energy here is different, more personal, more tender. This is the place where fear transforms into memory and memory into meaning. It is the next stage of descent, the child beneath the noise. You pause before entering, your breath steady, your heart calm. The fear that once kept you away now stands behind you as quiet strength. You realize that every shadow you face becomes light the moment it is seen. You take one last look into the darkness and whisper, "Thank you for guarding the way." Then you step forward, and the light embraces you. There is a silence that follows every great confrontation with fear. Not the silence of absence, but of listening. It is the stillness after the storm when the dust has settled and the air smells faintly of rain. That is where you find yourself now. You walk through a narrow passageway that opens into a small circular chamber. The stone walls glow with a soft, honey-colored light. The floor is covered in sand, warm, dry, and almost golden. The air here hums differently. It carries a gentleness that feels almost human. You stop. Something inside you stirs. A pull that is not curiosity, but recognition. This place feels like somewhere you've been before, long ago, before the noise of the world began. You take a slow breath. And then you hear it, faint like a distant echo. Laughter. The sound is light, unguarded, and impossibly familiar. It comes from deeper within the chamber, beyond a small archway carved into the rock. You follow it, your steps careful but certain. Each footfall feels like a memory resurfacing. On the other side, you see him, a boy. Small, barefoot, sitting cross-legged on the floor. He's tracing circles in the sand with a stick, humming softly to himself. The air around him glows brighter, as if the light itself is drawn to his presence. He doesn't see you at first. You just stand there, watching him, the way his hair falls into his eyes. The quiet intensity with which he concentrates, the way he seems completely content in his own world, untouched by judgment, expectation, or time. And then it hits you, not as an idea, but as an ache so sudden it almost takes your breath away. You know this boy. You remember the shape of his face, the way his shoulders curled when he was scared, the way he looked to the door at night, hoping someone would come. He is you. You take a step closer, and he looks up. His eyes meet yours, and for a moment, the two of you simply stare at each other, the man and the boy, the present and the past. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't run. He just tilts his head slightly as if to say, "I've been waiting." You kneel. The sand shifts softly beneath your knees. He studies you for a long moment before speaking. His voice is quiet, but it cuts through you. You got so loud. The words land with the weight of years. You know what he means. You remember the noise, the striving, the self-criticism, the endless effort to be good enough, competent enough, strong enough. The noise of adulthood, achievement, performance, comparison, the noise that drowned him out. You swallow, but your throat feels dry. I had to, you whisper. It was the only way to survive. He nods, not with anger, but with understanding. I know. That's why I stayed quiet. You look at him again. Really look. His hands are small, but steady. His eyes are deep and knowing. There's no bitterness there, only a kind of patient sadness, the sadness of someone who waited too long to be remembered. This is the child Jung spoke of. Not just the child of age, but of soul. The pure eternus, the eternal boy who lives within every man, not the immature dreamer who refuses responsibility, but the source of vitality that gives life meaning. When the man loses touch with the boy, his strength becomes rigid, his achievements turn hollow, his relationships lose warmth. The boy carries the fire that keeps the heart alive. The boy stands and walks toward you. He reaches out his hand. You hesitate, afraid of breaking the moment, but he simply takes your fingers in his small palm and places them over his chest. His heartbeat is strong, quick, alive. You forgot this, he says. You close your eyes. For a moment, the years collapse. The noise, the striving, the armor, all of it falls away, leaving only the pulse of life beneath your hand. You remember things you didn't know you'd forgotten, the smell of wet earth after rain, the thrill of running without destination, the joy of creation for its own sake. The boy smiles faintly. I didn't go anywhere. You just stopped visiting. The words echo, soft but unrelenting. You realize that in your quest to grow, to harden, to become a man, you abandoned the very part of you that made becoming worth it. Jung once wrote that every act of maturity requires the rediscovery of the child's heart, not to regress, but to remember the roots of life. Without that connection, discipline becomes duty, power becomes control, and wisdom becomes cynicism. The boy's laughter, that spontaneous, uncalculated sound, is the key to joy that strength alone cannot provide. You look at him again and ask quietly, "What do you need from me?" He doesn't hesitate. "Time," he says, "and truth, and quiet." 3 simple words, and yet they contain the entire map of healing. Time to be felt instead of fixed. Truth, to speak what the adult learned to swallow. Quiet, so the noise of the world doesn't drown out the soul's small voice. You nod, and he smiles, that wide, innocent grin that once came so easily to you. For a moment, he laughs again, and it fills the chamber like music. You feel warmth flood your chest, spreading outward like sunlight after years of shadow. When you open your eyes again, the boy is fading. Not disappearing, just dissolving into the light. His form becomes translucent, then transparent, until all that remains is that laughter. Soft, distant, eternal. The sand beneath you begins to shift. You rise slowly, realizing that the chamber is beginning to change. The golden light dims into amber, the air cooling slightly. The laughter fades into silence once more. But this time, the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels full. You place your hand over your chest and feel your own heartbeat. Steady, calm, alive. You understand now what Jung meant when he said, "In every adult there lurks a child, an eternal child, something that is always becoming, never completed." That child is not weakness. It is renewal. It is the source of imagination, tenderness, and courage that keeps the soul awake. You bow your head slightly, not out of reverence, but gratitude. You whisper, "I remember you." The chamber brightens one last time, and a door appears in the far wall, a narrow opening of light. You walk toward it slowly, your steps soundless on the sand. As you pass through, the warmth follows you like a quiet companion. Beyond the doorway, a new passage begins. This one darker, cooler, lined with water that reflects the faint glow of unseen stars. The air smells like the ocean after rain. You can sense what comes next, the meeting of opposites, the union of forces that Jung called conjunctio, the sacred marriage of the conscious and the unconscious, the masculine and the feminine within. But for now, you are still walking. The boy's laughter lingers somewhere in the distance, soft as breath, steady as memory. You are not alone. You are whole. And so the journey continues. Chapter 5. The Union of Opposites. You walk through a narrow tunnel that curves slowly downward until the air begins to shimmer with a faint mist. The walls no longer feel like stone, but something living, breathing, pulsing with light beneath the surface. You can hear it now, a low hum rising from the depths, the same sound you once mistook for silence. It is the vibration of life itself. You follow it. The air cools, then warms, then cools again, as if the cave were inhaling and exhaling through you. Your body relaxes into its rhythm. Each breath becomes slower, heavier, deeper. At last, the passage widens into a vast chamber unlike any before. It opens into a lake so still it mirrors the ceiling of stars above. Though you are far beneath the earth, the water glows faintly silver, like liquid moonlight. The air smells of minerals and rain. You stand at its edge and realize, with a quiet certainty, that this is the heart of the journey. Across the lake, barely visible, stands another figure. You can't make out the face, but you know it's there. Something waiting, watching, calling without sound. It feels familiar, not like another person, but like another half of your own soul. This is what Jung called the anima, the inner feminine of a man, the bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious depths. She's not a woman made of flesh, but of meaning. She is your instinct for feeling, your sensitivity, your capacity for connection and beauty. And you have exiled her, as most men do in the pursuit of hardness. You step closer to the lake. The surface trembles slightly as if it senses your presence. The reflection that stares back is both you and not you. The face you know, softened by light you've never seen. Somewhere within the reflection, her image begins to form, eyes first, calm and luminous. Then a hand, reaching toward you through the mirrored surface. For a moment you hesitate. This part of you feels dangerous. Not because it's evil, but because it's honest. It carries everything you've kept under control: tenderness, longing, intuition, love. Qualities that once felt unsafe to show. You take a slow breath. The old armor creaks. And then, without another thought, You step into the water. The surface breaks silently. The lake is warm, not cold. It wraps around you like breath, and for the first time in the entire descent, you feel utterly weightless. There is no gravity here, no struggle, no need to swim. You simply float. Above you, stars shimmer in the mirrored ceiling. Below you, their reflections shimmer back. You cannot tell which way is up or down, outer or inner. This is the mystery Jung spoke of, that opposites, when truly held, dissolve their boundaries. The voice comes softly now, not from outside, but from within. You are taught to choose, it says, to be strong or soft, to lead or listen, to fight or feel. But life is not built on choices. It is built on balance. The sound doesn't echo. It reverberates through your bones. You close your eyes. The water moves through your hair, around your hands, into your chest. It fills you without drowning you, the way love fills without consuming. You begin to see flashes of memory, the moments you rejected softness because it felt unsafe, the relationships you sabotaged because vulnerability felt like weakness, the times you demanded control when what you truly needed was connection. These images drift upward like bubbles, bursting harmlessly on the surface. They no longer hurt. They simply pass. You remember Jung's words. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This is the same within you. When your masculine will meets your feminine soul, neither dominates. They transmute each other. The warrior becomes a protector instead of a destroyer. The lover becomes devoted instead of addicted. The king becomes a servant of life rather than a ruler over it. You feel the two energies within you now. The still, grounding weight of the masculine and the fluid, luminous pulse of the feminine. They don't compete. They begin to dance. Every inhale feels like structure. Every exhale feels like surrender. Together they form rhythm, heartbeat, tide, breath. This is what Jung meant by individuation. Not perfection, but harmony. You open your eyes again. The figure across the lake is closer now, no longer separate, but walking toward you across the water. She doesn't speak. Her eyes are calm, radiant with the same golden light you saw in the boy's chamber. She reaches out and touches your face. The moment her hand meets your skin, the entire lake erupts in light. You are not blinded. You are illuminated. You see not just her, but everything she represents. Your capacity for empathy, for beauty, for wonder. You see that strength without softness is violence, and softness without strength is collapse. You understand now why Jung called this union the royal marriage. It is the rebirth of the sovereign self, the part of you that no longer swings between extremes, but governs with balance. You close your eyes again and let the light sink into you. It feels like warmth spreading through your chest, then your limbs, then your breath. The light grows softer, quieter, until it rests at the center of your being. A small golden ember glowing just behind your sternum. It will not fade. When you open your eyes once more, the figure is gone. The lake has gone still again, the stars reflected perfectly on its surface. But the glow remains within you, calm, centered, alive. You walk out of the water slowly. Each step feels grounded, real. The mist cools your face. Behind you, the lake lies silent, eternal, like a mirror that has done its work. Ahead, another passage awaits. Narrower, darker, winding upward. You can feel that this ascent will not lead out of the cave, but deeper still, toward something sacred, the part of you capable of blessing life rather than merely surviving it. You pause before entering the passage and whisper softly into the darkness, "I am not divided." The walls echo it back, a single word repeated like a mantra fading into infinity. Divided, divided, no more. You take a final look at the silver lake, then step into the passageway. The air here is warmer, the hum of life deeper, steadier. Every breath feels like balance, every heartbeat, reconciliation. The masculine and feminine now walk together within you. Discipline and intuition, order and imagination, fire and water. They are no longer at war. They are one. This is the gift of the fifth chamber, the union of opposites, the rediscovery of the wholeness you are born with. And as you walk upward, toward the unknown, you realize that peace is not a state you reach. It is a relationship you keep. Chapter 6. The Temple of the King. There is a silence that feels like peace, and there is a silence that feels like purpose. This one is both. The tunnel begins to widen. The air grows warmer, perfumed faintly with cedar and smoke. You sense open space ahead. Not the dark closeness of the earlier chambers, but something vast, reverent, waiting. The walls shimmer with faint gold, like veins of light running through ancient stone. You take one final step and emerge into a great hall carved into the earth itself. It is immense. Pillars of obsidian rise from the floor to the unseen ceiling, engraved with symbols you somehow understand without reading. The air is thick with quiet majesty. At the far end, on a raised platform, stands a single throne. Simple, unadorned, but unmistakably sacred. And then you realize, this is not the seat of a god. It is the seat of the self. Your self. You walk slowly toward it. Your footsteps echo like heartbeat against the stone. Every step feels heavier, not with fatigue, but with gravity. You remember everything that brought you here. The fear you faced, the child you remembered, the shadow you embraced, the feminine you met in the lake. Each one walks beside you now, silent, steady, forming a procession toward the throne. When you reach the steps, you pause. The air feels alive, humming with quiet power. You hesitate, not out of fear, but reverence. This, Jung would say, is the moment of individuation, when a man no longer defines himself by his wounds, his roles, or his masks, but by his capacity to hold all of them without being ruled by any. You climb the steps. There are 7. Each one feels like a statement of truth. First step. I am not my past. Second, I am not my image. Third, I am not my fear. Fourth, I am not my success. Fifth, I am not my failure. Sixth, I am what remains when all else is seen and released. Seventh, I am whole. You stand before the throne now. It is carved of the same stone as the cave itself, ancient, unbreakable, smooth from centuries of waiting. On the seat rests a small object, a golden circlet, simple and unfinished. It is not a crown of power, but of responsibility. You reach out and lift it. It feels light in your hands, almost weightless, and yet when you place it upon your head, your spine straightens instinctively. Something within you settles. Not pride, not dominance, but a quiet acceptance. This is what Jung meant by the king archetype, the integration of strength and compassion, order and vitality. It is not the tyrant who rules by fear, nor the weakling who abdicates by self-pity. It is a man who governs himself first. As you sit, the whole begins to change. The shadows move like smoke. The air vibrates with a low hum that feels like music older than the world. One by one, the archetypes begin to appear around you, not as ghosts, but as presences. To your left, the warrior, steady, alert, fierce without cruelty. His sword is sheathed. His gaze is clear. He is the part of you that acts decisively when it matters, that defends boundaries without needing to destroy. To your right, the lover, warm-eyed, heart open, alive to beauty. He is not the addict of pleasure, but the servant of connection, reminding you that tenderness is not weakness, but the pulse of meaning itself. Behind you stands the magician, cloaked in blue, holding a small light in his hands. His eyes shimmer with insight. He represents the creative mind, the bridge between matter and spirit, between reason and intuition. And in front of you, standing silent and still, the king. Not the external ruler, but the image of your own wholeness mirrored back at you. He watches you, not testing, not judging, simply waiting for recognition. You realize that this image has always been within you, but the noise of life, the pain, the fragmentation made it impossible to see. The king does not appear when you conquer the world. He appears when you integrate it. You breathe in deeply. The hall expands with your breath. The king speaks, but his voice sounds like your own. A man does not ascend by power. He descends through honesty. He learns to kneel before what he truly serves: love, truth, order, and the mystery that gave him breath. You listen. Every word lands like a stone in water, sending ripples through your chest. He continues. You sought strength, and life gave you weakness so you could learn compassion. You sought control, and life gave you chaos so you could learn trust. You sought love, and life gave you rejection so you could learn to love without condition. Every wound was not a punishment. It was a correction, a return to balance. You close your eyes. The truth of it is overwhelming, but gentle. You understand now that sovereignty is not the absence of need or emotion, but the mastery of presence. The king does not rule by domination, but by alignment, with his own values, with the deeper order of being. You hear footsteps echo behind you. When you turn, you see them, all the figures from before. The boy, the shadow, the woman from the lake. the warrior, the lover, the magician. They stand in a circle around you, their faces calm, their energy unified. They are not separate entities anymore. They are aspects of the same whole. You rise from the throne. The golden circlet glows softly in the dim light. You realize that to sit on the throne was never the goal. The goal was to remember it was yours to begin with. You walk down the 7 steps slowly, reverently. The figures follow, merging with you as you move. Each step feels lighter, freer. When you reach the final step, the hall is empty again. Only the faint sound of wind remains, or maybe it's your breath echoing against the walls. You walk toward the far end of the hall, where a massive door stands open. Beyond it, there is daylight, soft, golden, the first you've seen since you began your descent. As you cross the threshold, the air changes. You feel warmth on your skin, the scent of earth and sun. You are outside again, standing on a mountainside. Below you, valleys stretch endlessly, rivers gleaming like veins of light. The sky is vast and pale blue, and for the first time in this journey, you realize you are no longer underground. You look back once more at the dark opening that led you here. You do not wish to forget it, nor to return to it. It is part of you now, the underworld that taught you how to live above it. You whisper, "Thank you," and turn toward the sun. The warmth touches your face, your chest, your hands. You close your eyes. You feel the heartbeat of the world, steady, immense, forgiving. The voice, the same one that has guided you through every chamber, speaks one last time. Power without humility destroys. Humility without power disappears. Hold both. Rule wisely. And remember, the crown is not above you. It rests inside your heart. The sound fades. You stand in stillness, eyes closed, the mountain wind moving through your hair. Then you inhale deeply and exhale. And with that breath, the throne, the chambers, the archetypes, and the shadows dissolve. You remain whole, present, sovereign. The journey has ended, but the work continues. Quietly, daily, faithfully. And as you drift into sleep, one phrase repeats in your mind like a blessing whispered from the depths of the unconscious. Be that man, not perfectly, reliably. You stand at the edge of the mountain. The horizon glows faintly with dawn, though the sun has not yet broken through. Everything is still, even the wind seems to wait. For a long moment, you simply breathe. You feel the cool air enter your lungs, the quiet strength of the ground beneath your feet, the pulse of life steady and unhurried. This is what peace feels like. Not the absence of movement, but the alignment of it. You have descended into darkness, faced the shadow, met the child, crossed the lake, worn the crown. And now, without ceremony, you return. Not as the man who left, but as the one who has learned that leaving was never the point. The journey was never about reaching the throne or conquering fear or silencing pain. It was about remembering that every fragment of your life, every wound, every doubt, every hunger, belonged to something larger, something holy, Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You have done that. You have walked through the darkness, and now the light returns. Not from above, but from within. The sun begins to rise. A faint line of gold appears on the horizon, spreading slowly across the peaks. It touches the snow, the stone, the river far below. It touches you. You close your eyes and let it warm your face. The light is not blinding. It is gentle, like an old friend greeting you after a long absence. You feel it move through your skin, into your chest, until it reaches that quiet ember, the one the woman from the lake left in your heart. The light merges with it, and suddenly you are glowing from within. This is the return, not to the world you left, but to the same world seen with new eyes. The voice of the narrator, calm, steady, older than time, speaks again, though now it feels as if it's coming from inside your own breath. The work is not to escape the world, but to live within it awake. The mountain and the marketplace are the same. The silence you found here is not a place. It is a way. You open your eyes. The sky is now fully lit, a wash of rose and pale gold stretching into infinity. Below, you see movement, rivers winding like veins of light, forests breathing mist, villages beginning to stir. Life continues, and you realize you belong to it. Every man must leave the cave at some point. Every insight, no matter how profound, must find its way into a morning routine, into the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you love. The king's temple is not made of stone. It is built in the choices you make when no one is watching. The shadow's strength is not in its darkness, it is in its honesty. The boy's laughter is not in the past, it is in the moments when you stop performing and simply live. You begin walking down the mountain. The path is narrow but clear, carved by those who came before you. Countless men who also descended and returned. Their footsteps echo faintly in your memory, not as ghosts, but as kin. The light shifts through the trees, dappling the earth in gold and shadow. You feel both grounded and light, both ancient and new. You pass a stream and kneel for a drink. The water is cold, clean, alive. You watch it swirl between your fingers, catching bits of sunlight in motion. For the first time in a long while, you feel simple joy. Not ecstasy, not triumph, but peace that asks for nothing. As you continue, you notice the world listening with you. The wind brushes through leaves like whispers of affirmation. The stones beneath your feet hum with quiet strength. Even the distant calls of birds seem to echo the same truth. You are here. You are whole. You think of all the ways you used to chase meaning, in ambition, in approval, in control. And now you see that meaning was never something to be found. It was something to be inhabited. It lived in every act done with presence, every word spoken with integrity, every silence filled with awareness. You reach the foot of the mountain, where the land opens into a valley. A single tree stands there, tall, strong, half in shadow, half in light. Its roots disappear into the soil, its branches stretch toward the sky. You stand beneath it and rest your palm against the bark. The surface is rough but warm, alive. It feels like a pulse. You remember something Jung once said. The tree that reaches to heaven must have roots that reach to hell. You smile faintly. You understand now. Wholeness is not purity. It is depth. To rise, one must also descend. To grow, one must first take root in the truth of what is. You sit beneath the tree and let your back rest against its trunk. The air hums gently, filled with birdsong and the low rustle of leaves. You breathe in and exhale. The mind begins to loosen, thoughts softening like waves folding back into the sea. You feel the weight of your own body sinking gently into the earth, not as burden, but as belonging. You hear the voice again, quieter now, as if it were part of the wind. Do not rush to become something new. Be still long enough to realize you already are. A pause. Then, every end is a beginning in disguise. Every wound, a door. Every night, a teaching. You feel a heaviness in your eyelids, the kind that isn't exhaustion but surrender. You let it come. The sky deepens into amber. The last rays of dawn spread like silk across the valley. The air grows warmer, slower. Your breathing slows with it. Images drift through your half-dreaming mind. The boy smiling in the sand, the woman's hand on your face, the king's voice echoing in the golden hall, the crown dissolving into light, the laughter returning like birds at dawn. They merge into one, the way rivers merge into the sea. You are no longer a traveler, or a seeker, or a warrior. You are the field itself, still, vast, aware. The boundary between self and world fades until only presence remains. This is not sleep as escape. It is sleep as return. The psyche folding into itself to dream its own wholeness again. The final words come like a benediction, spoken from a distance that is not distance at all. You have walked through shadow and found light. You have learned that strength is gentleness and gentleness is strength. You have seen that the divine hides not above, but within. So rest now, not because the journey is over, but because it continues through stillness. A final breath, a final silence, and then, softly, be that man, not perfectly, reliably. Begin. The voice fades. Only the rhythm of your own breathing remains. Slow, calm, certain. The light has returned, and you are home.